Hello, this is Anna from Madame Sew. Today I want to show you how to use the edge joining foot or stitch in the ditch foot. If you have the 32 presser feet set from Madame Sew, it's number 27. And it has a blade right in the middle that's going to allow you to stitch right on a seam. You just align the seam with that blade and just center your needle and it will stitch a perfect line right there. And it's going to be very useful for binding your quilts. Today I'm going to show you how to do a French binding, which involves using just a doubled strip folded in the middle, and we're going to wrap it around 3 times, or actually we're going to wrap it around twice, but it's going to have 3 folds. It's a very strong binding because you'll have 2 layers of fabric on the bias going over the edge of your quilt, so you can wash it 1,000 times. And this is what I like to use for placemats and little doll blankets like this, because it's all, you know, these are things that are going to go in the wash very often, and they're going to need to have a strong binding that it's not going to start going threadbare right at the edge there, as it would happen if you had your tape cut on the straight of grain instead of on the bias. You can't do it on the straight of grain if you're binding something that's not going to have such hardware, but if you want a really strong one, do it on the bias. Let's get started. So for this tutorial, or for this kind of binding, you're going to need obviously your quilted piece, your bias tape, 2 inches wide, and to calculate how much you need, just measure the perimeter of your quilt and add 10 to 15 inches to that, you know, to turn the corners and to join the 2 edges at the end and give you a little bit of wiggle room there. You also need obviously your edge joining or stitch in the ditch foot, some pins for the last step, and if you want it to be really invisible, you may want to use some thread that matches your quilt top, and then on the bobbin you want some thread that matches your bias binding, and that way it will be a pretty much invisible seam. Also, a small ruler will be helpful, or a seam guide, and a marking tool. If you're using commercial binding, as I did here, first you're going to need, see, this is my commercial binding and it's double fold, and the total width is 2 inches. So the first thing I need to do is iron it out like I started doing here for you to see, and then once you've ironed the whole thing out, just fold it in half and iron it again. So you have the raw edges here together, and then the fold on the other side. So that's the first step. Now that our binding is ironed, let's start pinning it. And you want to make sure you start somewhere in the middle. You don't want to be near a corner, because that's where you're going to do all the complicated folding for your mitered corners. So you want to start away from a corner. Doesn't really matter where. If you have a longer side, it's a small piece like this, go in the middle of the long side, and start pinning the raw edges together. So you have the fold away from the piece or from the edge, and you're matching all the raw edges together, and make sure you match them nicely, because you're going to need the extra, as much tape as you can when you fold it to the other side. If you want to pin it, pin it. And the other thing is, make sure you don't start right at the edge. You're going to need this end to be loose so you can join it to the end when you come around after you've bound the whole piece. So give yourself about 2 inches, and now we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. So if you have a 1/4 inch foot, and if you have one like this with a guide, and if you have Madame Sew's 32 presser foot set, this is number 17. And it's very useful because it has a guide, so it makes it very easy to get a nice even line. If you don't have it, don't worry, any 1/4 inch foot will do. We're starting to stitch about 2 inches from the end of the tape, and we're going to move slowly towards the corner. Now, as we approach the corner, we want to really slow down. In fact, stop. If you have a guide, a pivoting guide on your foot, by all means use it. But if you want to feel safe, just mark the 1/4 inch with your ruler and a marking tool. Okay, so we approach the corner very slowly, and we want to stop right on that mark, or right when the pivoting line or pivoting guide on our foot hits the edge of the fabric. With the needle down, raise the lever, and now pivot the fabric so that the corner itself is facing you. You're going to make a diagonal line. Now stitch to the corner. It's a very short line, and cut the thread. Okay, now we're going to fold the tape away from us at a 45-degree angle, just like this. And now we're going to bring it back down to match the raw edges with the new side. And notice that these two lines are aligned, and that top fold is aligned with the raw edges on the top side. And now this, of course, is aligned here. Now you can pin it if you want. It's not necessary, but it might help keep things secure while you start that new seam. Now we can start stitching again from the very edge and move slowly over the corner. And just keep working on your 1/4 inch seam until you reach the other corner and repeat the process. So here we are at the last corner, and we have a pin right here to signal where to stop because we want to have a loose tail so we can join it here to the end at the beginning. So it's just going to be a 1/4 inch seam. We're going to stop right here at the pin. Just move close to the pin, pull it out, finish your seam for a few stitches, and back tack. All right, so now here we are. I'm gonna show you how to join these two edges. So we're going to overlap them, mark about an inch. It's not a big deal, but roughly an inch, make a mark, and just cut that excess. All right, and now if you want to measure, if not, eyeball it, and then just mark the center of that overlap and make a mark. I like to use my nail. If you do it hard enough, it will go through all layers. And now we're just going to unfold the tape on both sides. Just like so, put right sides together. Now we're just going to pin it. Just align it carefully. You know, I'm just looking at that black mark on my finger. I don't know where that came from. Let's pin right here. So for this, I have actually used my edge joining foot because that blade is going to be very helpful. I'm just going to run that mark right under the blade for a very accurate seam. I'm going to back tack a little bit. Backwards. Pull that pin out. And now we're just going to trim this seam allowances. I'm going to do it actually a little narrower than a 1/4 inch. And now we'll just finger press it open. It is fiddly, it's so tiny. Here we go. And we'll just fold it again. So now that that edge is finished, we're just going to bring it back to the machine and simply finish that 1/4 inch seam. I like to back tack at the beginning a little bit and at the end. Go over the first few stitches. And we're done with this part. So now we're just going to iron the tape away from the seam. towards the outside so we can easily turn it to the other side. This is going to help also give you a little more tape to turn to the other side and make sure that it is caught in the stitching in the next step. So just give it a good press, and don't be afraid to push a little hard so that it lies nice and flat. And now look at these nice corners. See, on the right side, the corners are just magically appear. You don't have to do anything else after you made that fold and stitch it down. Now on the wrong side, we're going to start pinning. And here is the stitching line right here. And we want to fold over the tape so that it goes over it, past it by about 1/8 of an inch. You want to make sure that you're going to catch it on the other end and just stick your pin in there. And if you feel that you're pushing too hard to get it past that line, feel free to just trim the edges of the quilt a little bit more, just trim them very slightly. Here we are at the corner now, and we need to just finger press it at a 45-degree angle. There it is. Okay, and now you may want to stick another pin right here, close to the corner. Make sure everything stays in place. And now we're going to fold it over. And it can be very fiddly because it is a narrow binding. So just try to get it in there. Sometimes I use my seam ripper or some other small tool to help me out. There it is. Okay, there we go. And now let's just, no, it came off. There's my seam ripper to help me out. Push it in so it's nice and flat, and now fold it over. And sometimes it's easier than others. Sometimes you just do the corner in like 1 second, but sometimes they get fiddly. It is, it's a lot of folds of fabric in there. So let's just pin it now that we got it. There it is. All right, now it's nice and secure. Let's fold that in a little bit better. There. And now we just continue pinning around in the same way until we've done the whole thing. Here's our porcupine. And be careful. I've poked myself a few times already. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stitch right here. And this is where the original seam line was. And then on the back, it's going to catch it. Now it's very tight. It's only going to catch it by a little bit, so we need to go slowly. And also, your pins are going to be on the wrong side, so they're going to be very, very difficult to remove. I'm going to sew over them. And I think if you go slowly enough, it's okay to do that. Right, let's snap on this adjoining foot. Very simple. And let's bring the porcupine over. And again, we're not going to start in the corner. We're going to start somewhere in the middle. In fact, I'm going to go all the way down here. And I'm placing the blade right against that seam so that it's brushing, sort of actually pushing against it. We want to move it a little bit so that our stitching is hidden right under. Needle down. And we're going to go slowly. Remember, you have all those pins coming in contact with those feed dogs. So you want to go slowly and make sure you're pushing them along. Here we are approaching the corner. Slow down. Now remember, you have both pins here and they're meeting in the corner. And you want to make sure that you're catching the bottom. So slow down, lift the presser foot, see how far you are. Still have quite a few stitches. And it's a lot of fabric here, so you may need to push it a little bit. All right, let's see. Actually, there we go. All right. There, needle down, and let's see. I think now it's done. Yes, there we go. Okay, so now we just continue on slowly. There's still a lot of pins, and just go to the other end. And now we're all done. Here's the little doll blanket I made. I hope you made something you like and you'll find useful. And I hope you give that edge joining foot a try, because it is really useful and you'll use it for many other things, not just for adding binding to your quilts. Also, if you have any comments, questions, anything you need to know, just let us know in the comments. We'll be happy to help you. See you in the next one.